Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting, Kettering City Council. Today's date is April the 13th, and as always, we'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin tonight's meeting, we'll pause for a brief invocation. Dear Lord, thank you for all who serve the Kettering community. Give us enthusiasm for our work and wisdom to make the right decisions. May we remain humble and grateful for the opportunity to lead. Guide this council so we may continue to serve our citizens with integrity and purpose, always remembering to be worthy of these responsibilities entrusted in us by our residents. Our Miami Valley Communication Council TV operator in the back, Mike Soproni. Mike, thank you as always, appreciate it. Next, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, March 23rd, 2021 council meeting and workshops. Mr. Lauder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have reviewed both the minutes from the council meeting and the workshop from March 23rd. I find both of them in order and therefore move for their approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes. Moving on to proclamation special presentation. First one, Proclamation Arbor Day. Carrie Miles, Environmental Education Supervisor, and Gary Seschler, Parks Superintendent, will be accepting the proclamation this evening. Mr. Klepass.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can see now. Got the fog off. I'm ready to go. I have a proclamation this evening. Whereas Arbor Day is a special day set aside for the planting of trees and is observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas Arbor Day calls attention to the need for conservation, stressing how essential it is to maintain and protect the beauty and usefulness of our natural forests, as well as the importance of trees to conserve the land in all areas. And whereas Arbor Day in Kettering is celebrated by the planting of trees at Pondview Park on Saturday, April 17, 2021, which is part of Kettering's annual Tree Fest activities. And whereas because of the city's commitment to enhance the scenic beauty of our community, the City of Kettering was awarded the Tree City USA Growth Award by the National Arbor Day Foundation for demonstrating environmental improvement for higher level tree care. And whereas the continuation of planting trees within our community will enhance the quality of life for all residents and add to the scenic wonders that will be enjoyed by generations to come. Now, therefore, Donald E. Patterson, Mayor of the City of Kettering, Ohio, on behalf of City Council and the community, does hereby proclaim April 17, 2021 to be Arbor Day in the City of Kettering, Ohio, and urge all citizens to recognize the importance of planting trees as the embodiment of life and for the economic and social growth of our community. Signed this 13th day of April, 2021, Donald E. Patterson, Mayor of the City of Kettering, Ohio.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Klepass. Accepting is Carrie. Is Carrie here too? Gary replacing Carrie. Oh, Gary's replacing Carrie. Okay. And you can have a few words to say there. Thank you.
I appreciate the words, Mr. Klepass. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As a 38-year recipient of Tree City USA, I'm proud to accept this on behalf of the Parks Division, and not only Carrie, but we're excited to have Tree Fest back this year. Obviously, knowing the cancellation last year, it's good to get back out there. We've done a handful of work to prepare, continued some invasive removal, and working with folks to not only secure the trees that we're going to plant this Saturday, but the trees that we've planted in years past. So would appreciate anyone that would like to come out. We will have the same guidelines that we're following right now within all of our parks. So we encourage folks to come out. We'll social distance, and when we can't, we'll be wearing a mask. And we look forward to a great day and some good weather on Saturday.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we'll move on to another proclamation, National Volunteer Week. Ms. Fisher.
I have a proclamation. Turn that on. Whereas the National Volunteer Week was established in 1974 and has grown exponentially each year, drawing endorsements of all subsequent U.S. presidents, governors, mayors, and other respected elected officials. It is a time to say thank you and honor the millions of people who changed the world by volunteering. It's all about inspiring, recognizing, and encouraging people to seek out imaginative ways to engage in their communities. And whereas the theme for the National Volunteer Week is Celebrate Service, and whereas our nation was founded on a spirit of volunteerism, and the talents and energies of the American volunteers are one of our nation's greatest assets and certainly one of Kettering's greatest resources. And whereas the year marks the 47th anniversary of National Volunteer Week and the 42nd anniversary of the City of Kettering Volunteer Program. And whereas after 42 years, Kettering volunteers continue to demonstrate the positive difference that they made when people of all walks of life come together in times of triumph and of times of adversity, proving that together we have the power to make a positive change. And whereas the City of Kettering is honored to join with communities across the country to recognize the individuals, families, students, service club members, and all those who share their time and talent to accomplish extraordinary things through service. Therefore, Donald E. Patterson, Mayor of the City of Kettering of Ohio, on behalf of the City Council and the community, do hereby proclaim April the 18th through the 24th of 2021 to be National Volunteer Week. It is signed on the 13th day of April by our Mayor, Donald E. Patterson.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. And accepting the proclamation for National Volunteer Week, Carrie Basson, Chairperson of the Volunteer Advisory Council. Hi, Carrie.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson, Mrs. Fisher, and City Council for this proclamation. As you know, the volunteer spirit that shines in our community is impressive. Whenever needs arise, our volunteers are ready to serve with commitment, dedication, and heart. This last year has presented a host of challenges for us all, and our volunteer program is no exception, as most in-person volunteer positions were paused. Yet our volunteers still stepped up to address needs in the community as these needs surfaced. Sewing and distributing face masks, calling seniors to check on their well-being, assisting with senior transportation needs, distributing PPE kits, and creating greeting cards for our nursing home residents, all became part of the way volunteers demonstrated their care, concern, and compassion for others. Service to others is part of the culture in Kettering. It's a gift that is passed on through generations as the youth in our community join with adults to lend a hand in times of need. There is nothing more heartwarming than seeing families, service clubs, and high school and college students working together for the greater good. In addition to recognizing our wonderful volunteers, we also thank you, Mayor Patterson, members of City Council, and city staff. Your support is vital to the success of the program. It is with gratitude and enthusiasm, I'm going to do this really quick,
Yes.
that we look to the future and the many ways we'll work with volunteers to tackle any challenges that come our way, further demonstrating what commitment, dedication, and heart can do to positively impact and strengthen a community. And before we move on to our next thing, I'd like to share with you a video that our mayor put together helping to celebrate our volunteers and some of the things we'll be doing next week to celebrate them as we celebrate Volunteer Appreciation Week.
I'm Don Patterson, Mayor of the City of Kettering. April 18th through the 24th is National Volunteer Week. This week was established in 1974 by the Points of Light Foundation. It serves as an opportunity to recognize volunteers throughout our nation who step up to tackle the challenges and build stronger, healthier communities. Kettering is fortunate to have one of the first local government programs in the United States. Established in 1979, the program continues to flourish despite the trials and tribulations of last year. When faced with adversity, volunteers throughout our community immediately rose to the challenge by identifying needs and addressing them. Volunteers made calls to check on neighbors, helped deliver food, sewed and distributed face masks, created greeting cards, and distributed PPE kits to homes of our seniors. In celebration of National Volunteer Week, we will spotlight a different City of Kettering volunteer each day during the week. These volunteers represent a variety of ways to enrich the lives of others by volunteering. I think you will be inspired by these stories. Who knows? Maybe you'll decide to share your time and talent with us. In conclusion, I ask you to reflect on the ways volunteers have touched your life. Whether it's your child's sports coach, a volunteer who assisted you with your tax return, or a volunteer that helped you with transportation, they all deserve our gratitude. Thank you, volunteers.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll move on to presentation, Mayor's Award. Carrie Basson, Chairperson of the Volunteer Advisory Council.
Back with me again.
That's you.
The Mayor's Award for Volunteer Service was created in 1983 as a way to honor outstanding volunteers who are making valuable contributions to the community through volunteer service in a wide variety of categories. Recipients of this award must either be a resident of Kettering or have performed their service within Kettering. Tonight, in celebration of the upcoming National Volunteer Week, April 18th through 24th, we are pleased to honor both a youth volunteer and an adult volunteer. After reviewing several nominations from a variety of organizations, the Volunteer Advisory Council has selected Tajay Lawson and Sue Solvig to receive the prestigious Mayor's Award for Volunteer Service. And if Tajay could come down, please. Youth volunteer Tajay Lawson resides in Kettering with his grandmother and grandfather, George and Tammy Lawson. Tajay attends Kettering Middle School, and he is in the 8th grade. His volunteer efforts are extensive, and they address a wide variety of needs in our community, spanning a variety of generations. His efforts include serving the homeless by collecting coats and blankets, some of which he actually made himself, boxing personal care items for frontline workers at local nursing homes and hospitals, as well as frontline workers and first responders in New York, and collecting and donating baby items and diapers for Hannah's Treasure Chest. Tajay packs bags with hand sanitizer and snacks for the Kettering Police Department, creates and donates Get Well cards for those at the VA hospital, and he personally raised more than $1,000 for the PTA Walkathon at Kettering Middle School that helped supply snacks to all students during state testing. In addition, Tajay served as secretary to the Junior Optimist Club at KMS, and most recently was elected governor of the Ohio District for Junior Optimist International, and his term will start in August. Tajay's nominator stated, "Tajay has had obstacles throughout his life, but he still finds time to give to others. I cannot think of any other youth in our community who would be more deserving of this award." We cannot agree more. Congratulations, Tajay, and thank you for your service. You are a true model for our community.
Slide on in. Yay. There you go. Way to go, way to go.
Tonight's adult recipient of the Mayor's Award for Volunteer Service is Sue Solvig. Sue, would you come down, please? Hi. Sue grew up in a military family which took her to California, Florida, Tennessee, and Guam. She is married to her husband, Bob, and has 2 daughters, Erica and Rachel, and 4 grandsons. Sue and her husband spent several years in New York before making the move to our area in 2014. Sue began volunteering for the city of Kettering in October of 2019. Up until the pandemic, Sue's volunteer service included assisting at special events, receptionist duties, helping with the nutrition program, and scheduling rides for seniors as part of our senior transportation program at Latham Senior Center. In March of 2020, the Senior Center closed due to the pandemic. During this time, Sue and other volunteers rose to the challenge by making phone calls to isolated seniors to ensure their well-being. As the pandemic continued, Sue offered to return to help with the senior transportation program. After making some safety modifications to the office area, she returned in July to assist with this essential program. Typically, the center enlists the help of 5 different volunteers, 1 each day from 8 till noon. Sue stepped up to help every day from 8 to 10 a.m. Sue's nominator had this to say: "One of the most amazing things about Sue is her ability to truly bond with clients, listen to them, and make them feel safe. She spends hours on the phone talking through pandemic-related fears and other issues regarding isolation. She also talks with family members regarding their loved ones' transportation needs. She clearly and patiently explains our program to new clients. She is so well-liked that many callers are disappointed when a staff member answers the phone because they want to talk with Sue." Her nominator also explained, "Sue is gifted with a servant's heart. With the changes thrust upon us at the onset of the pandemic, she did not hesitate to offer help with the needs in our community, demonstrating what community is truly all about." Congratulations, Sue.
First of all, congratulations to both of you. I think it's evident by the comments that we as a Kettering, we as a community are because of our residents, and in particular our volunteers and the things they do for our community. Excuse me. So congratulations to both of you. I hope you continue to volunteer and find your path. You have a lot of years left to volunteer, so we expect to see you around here for a long time. So congratulations again. So next we will move on to a public hearing. An appeal of the Board of Zoning Appeals decision in BZA case number 20-016, which affirmed the decision of the zoning administrator to deny a permit request. First, city staff will make a presentation, then the appellant will have an opportunity to present. During your presentations, you may call witnesses, or if you have no witnesses other than yourself, you may come to the lectern and make your presentations. If you have documents that you would like council to consider, you may submit those to council at the end of your presentation. Witnesses that, if any, will sit in the witness box over there to the right of the lectern and be subject to cross-examination. Excuse me. Please speak clearly and into the microphones. After the presentations, we will take comments from those members of the public who are present and wish to be heard. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. The public hearing will then be closed. City Council will decide the appeal at a future meeting, not this evening. Since City Council is sitting as judge in this appeal and will be deciding the appeal at a future meeting, City Council will not respond to questions or make statements regarding what is presented this evening. Please do not direct questions to City Council or expect City Council to comment on the appeal. At this time, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and the recording will be the official record of the hearing. City Council reserves the right to continue the hearing to a future meeting. Now, all witnesses and persons wishing to speak tonight regarding the appeal should stand, raise your right hand, and take the following oath. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you present tonight before City Council in this matter is the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief? If so, answer, I do. Thank you. You can be seated. The record will reflect there are no subpoenas were requested for this hearing. Now, City Staff Wayne Waite will make a presentation. It's now time for City Staff's presentations. If you have any witnesses, have them sit in the witness box. Mr. Waite, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you stated, my name is Wayne Waite, and it is my privilege and honor to be here tonight representing city staff, planning development, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. My dad was a minister. His birthday was April 2020, so he'd be 101 if he was alive. But as one thing he'd say at home is, before food, is one word's good as 10 pass the potatoes, amen. He believed in brevity. I wish I could follow his direction tonight and to be very, very brief. But just as a forewarning, our presentation tonight is likely in the 45 minutes to an hour range, and that is because of the record that we are establishing for you so that you have all of the evidence, and also that in the event anyone else cares to review the record, they are able to see exactly what was presented, why it was presented, and the evidence that was presented. I'm going to begin with a brief opening statement, which I hope is in the 5-minute range, to kind of set the table for you as to what we'll be talking about tonight. My request to you tonight is that you would affirm the October 30, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeal decision that affirmed the zoning refusal for a structure permit because the Board of Zoning Appeals found no error in any written order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or judgment by the zoning officer, administrator, or the Board of Zoning Appeals. In other words, the Board of Zoning Appeals got it right, and Mr. Hunt got it right. In this particular case, the city manager, the staff, the planning and development, and even the Board of Zoning Appeals has really gone over backwards to help the applicant, in this case, Mr. Jenkins, by suggesting that he pursue variances that we believe, if were done properly, would give him at least portions of the relief that he wants. What he really wants is a gable roof. We've suggested that he apply for variances and go down that road. He's elected not to do that, and that's unfortunate. My dad would say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. We can't force him to do that. It's unfortunate. However, what we have for tonight is the record that is before you, and we believe it demonstrates that Mr. Hunt and the Board of Zoning Appeals got it right. Now, historically, we're talking about a structure that was compliant in 1971 that is no longer compliant with the modern zoning code. Therefore, it is what we refer to as a non-conforming structure. Bottom line, what's significant about that? Well, a non-conforming structure may be maintained, but it may not be significantly modified. And what Mr. Jenkins is proposing is a significant modifications that violate the zoning code in at least 6 specific ways that we'll get into as we get into the information tonight. So as I stated, this case involves a zoning refusal for a structure permit involving a request to put on a gable roof on top of a flat roof with metal panels at 3825 Wilmington Pike. Now, when this original permit was submitted, the zoning administrator, Mr. Hunt, before he retired, we'll hear about that, found that it was not in compliance with the zoning code. Historically, this is the second appeal about this matter. The first appeal did not reach you. The first appeal occurred on June 22nd, 2020, and it was refused because of a lack of information provided by the applicant. That action, as I stated, was not appealed to City Council. But the current proposal, in this case, our case 2016, would require variances but have not been requested. The appeal was filed, it was continued so that the applicant could discuss the case with the city manager, as I said he gave him the opportunity to do. He was informed that he could file variances but did not, but rather chose to pursue this appeal and to, I think, hope that City Council would see it his way. Although there was an application for a variance in 1971, that setback variance was approved for a flat roof. That's very significant. The current request is not for a flat roof, but is a change of the architectural format of the structure with a gable roof with metal panels. A structure permit is beyond the scope of the 1971 setback variance. And that's important because one of the issues that was discussed below, the applicant took the position that, hey, I don't need to do that because I already got my variance. The variance that he has flat roof. The proposed permit that's being requested now is for the gable roof. The Board of Zoning Appeals on October 30, 2020, found there was no error in any written order, requirement, decision, interpretation, judgment, or determination by the zoning administrator and affirmed Mr. Hunt's decision. We're asking you tonight to affirm the decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is being applied for. Historically, as I said, around 50 years ago, the BZA granted that variance, and it granted a variance for a 10-foot rear yard setback and also a 1.5-foot, 1.5-foot side yard setback. Now, since 1971, the zoning code has been developed, and the minimum rear yard setbacks and side yard setbacks have increased since that time. So the bottom line is that although this was compliant in 71, the property is no longer compliant to modern zoning code, and therefore it's a non-conforming structure. As I said, the property owner may maintain but not significantly modify, and this modification request exceeds what is called for, and therefore the current zoning code must be applied. When that occurs, the non-conforming aspects of that and the architectural standards come into play. So for example, the concrete blocks that are okay as a non-conforming use no longer is okay. And we will see as we provide evidence tonight several aspects, I think 8 of them I believe, where the architectural standards come into play and the building would lose its right to continue with the sloped roof. Now, initially, the owner argued that he did not need to submit any building elevations with his plans because he said it didn't apply to him. Later on, there were supplemental submissions and building elevations were presented so that staff could make the calculations as to whether this was a significant modification or not as defined by our code. The proposed plan does not comply with the 40-foot rear yard and the 10-foot side yard setback requirements. The proposed plan encroaches 30 feet in the rear and 9 on both sides. The proposed plan has approximately 6 specific violations. The proposed plan has a facade, which we will demonstrate for you, that includes the roof. So bottom line, we're asking that you affirm. To get through this tonight, we'll be reviewing several documents. Mr. Hunt will be taking us through those with a series of questions and answers. And at this time, I would like to begin by asking Mr. Hunt if you could please state your name.
Yes, my name is Ronald L. Hunt.
And have you served as an employee of the City of Kettering?
I have.
In what capacity?
For the last 15 years as a zoning administrator for Kettering.
And what is involved as your role as zoning administrator?
The principal activity of the zoning administrator is to interpret and enforce the zoning code.
In your capacity as zoning administrator, did you have the occasion to work up an application for a building permit by Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, I did.
Did you prepare a report?
Yes, I did.
And I'd ask to direct your attention to the exhibit that is in front of you and in front of the members of council on the left side to begin with. And if you would, could you please identify this report, which I am going to identify as Exhibit 1A, the report itself. What is it? What is 1A?
1A is a report that is specifically directed to City Council in the appeal of BZA case 20-016.
And what, could you tell the City Council what this case is about?
Yes, this case is about an appeal of the zoning administrator's decision to issue a zoning refusal for a structure permit application, permit number S19-05553, for an addition of a gable roof with metal panels on a building located at 3825 Wilmington Pike.
Okay, now, did you issue a notice of decision?
Yes, I did.
And if you would look up at the screen to Exhibit 1, Notice of Decision of Denial dated August 20, 2020. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. What's that document?
That document is the notice of decision, the zoning denial for the construction permit number S19-05553.
Okay, and if you could, I'm going to refer you to a hard copy of our exhibits, which I have placed before you, Mr. Hunt. And if you could just go to Exhibit 1 and identify and see if that is the same exhibit that everybody has on the screen.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So, what's a zoning refusal? There's a copy of one. What's a zoning refusal? What's it do?
A zoning refusal is an administrative decision by the zoning administrator to deny a permit due to the lack of compliance to the zoning code.
Now, had this structure ever been submitted before, a permit originally submitted?
Yes, this structure permit was originally submitted in July of 2019. However, the original permit application and subsequent plan resubmissions provided insufficient information. The lack of building elevations and details on proposed materials prevented staff from completing our evaluation.
Was there an appeal submitted in June 20, 2020?
Yes, on June 22nd of 2020, the Board of Zoning Appeals heard the first appeal case on this property in recent era, not the 71 data, but in BZA case 20-006, submitted by the property owner concerning the original zoning refusal, which had been issued by the city due to lack of sufficient information. After the public hearing was held that evening, the board confirmed the zoning administrator's decision to deny the requested roof and gable and wall addition for the building on the subject property. This action was never appealed to City Council.
Now, what would the current proposal require?
As currently proposed in the BZA case number 20-016, the requested structure permit would generate the need for a large number of variances. While the appellant has alluded to seeking these variances in his appeal and in material subsequently submitted for the current appeal to City Council, he does not specify which standard he wants variances to, nor why the variances should be granted.
Was a continuance granted to discuss the case?
Yes, after the appellant submitted his written appeal to BZA, Mr. Jenkins requested and was approved for a continuance of his case to accommodate his schedule and better prepare his presentation to the BZA in their public hearing. During this delay, Mr. Jenkins sought a meeting with the city manager, Mark Sweeterman, to discuss his case and to request a return of his application fee. During that meeting, which was attended by the Kettering Law Director, Mr. Hamer, and the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Robillard, Mr. Jenkins was given the opportunity to withdraw his appeal, which would allow the city to refund his application fee. He was informed that he could then submit a new appeal requesting specific variances to the Kettering zoning code. In that meeting, it was made clear to Mr. Jenkins that his current appeal does not constitute a request for variances.
Now, what was Mr. Jenkins' basic assertion going forward at that time?
Mr. Jenkins' basic assertions in his appeal is that the current zoning code standards do not apply to his property. His central assertion is found on the fifth sentence on page 2 of his appeal, which reads, "A permit and variance was issued in the 70s for an addition, but not for the original building, and is still good today. The new codes do not apply."
Okay, so if we just go to keep everybody in line with our exhibits, we go over to Exhibit 2, a letter from William Jenkins to the City of Kettering dated August 28 in the official book that I've handed you there. Could you please identify what Exhibit 2 is?
Yes, Exhibit 2 is a letter from Mr. Jenkins that spells out his appeal in this regard.
Okay. What is the significance of Mr. Jenkins' request for a gable roof?
The October 25th, 1971 setback variance that was granted for this property at 3825 Wilmington Pike, in that the BZA based their decision upon the drawings that were provided by the applicant, which showed a flat roofed structure. The current request is for a building addition with a gable roof and metal panels. Accordingly, the structure permit application is beyond the scope of the original 1971 setback variance. Therefore, the current zoning code standards must apply.
What does it mean to be in non-compliance with the regulations?
As provided in the Kettering zoning code, section 1133.05, no land shall be used or occupied, and no structures shall be designed, erected, altered, used, or occupied, except in conformity with all the regulations, compliance with all the design standards, and upon performance of all conditions attached to any permit, certificate, approval, determination, decision, variance, appeal, or other order pursuant to this zoning code. This regulation applies to all properties within the city of Kettering, regardless of previous variances that may have been granted. The appeal submitted by Mr. Jenkins asserts a number of statements that are not substantiated by any specific facts or data that would have allowed the Board of Zoning Appeals to overturn the decision by the zoning administrator to deny structure permit S19-05553.
And if you could, without going through each of these in detail for brevity, could you give council a brief summary of Mr. Jenkins' assertions?
There are a significant number of statements that were included in his appeals to the BZA that appear to be simply conjecture or opinion, and other statements that are irrelevant to the appeal. I'll just give you a few of them. Mostly they're just irrelevant. The original building was built in the middle 60s, and all of Ron's statements are not true, and those are not the facts. He says that, but he doesn't point out which facts are incorrect or what not true. No one objects to the new roof, and he goes on to show roofs that he feels are similar. These properties are not the same as the applicants, and it's not germane to the request that he has before the board and is now before City Council. Those are the types of things that are in there. They're conjecture, they're not supported by any facts, and they're not germane to the points relevant to the case in his appeal.
And there are in the official record that we'll be introducing several more assertions is listed in your report 1 through 7, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Could you briefly summarize the BZA appeal?
Yes. Based on their review, the BZA found no errors by the administrator, by the zoning administrator. The focus of the board's October 26, 2020 decision in BZA case 20-016, the action was solely to determine whether there was an error in any written order, requirement, decision, interpretation, judgment, or determination by the zoning administrator. The board made a determination that there were no errors made by the zoning administrator.
And if you would, please direct your attention to your book at Exhibit 3 and identify Exhibit 3, which I also have on the screen for members of council.
Okay, that is the motion in the decision to uphold the zoning administrator, my decision to refuse the case.
And I will just note, for purposes of the record, does the official copy that you have in front of you bear written signatures?
It does.
And who are the signatures?
The signatures are Rob Pretzinger and Dave Dutton, both on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'll just note for the record that although the copy that's before council is lacking Mr. Pretzinger's signature, the official record has his signature on it that you'll have for your deliberations of the actual evidence in the case. Okay. Provide us with a background of this property.
About 50 years ago, the Board of Zoning Appeals granted a rear yard variance to permit the existing 10-foot rear yard building setback for the building at 3825 Wilmington Pike. When the 1971 addition was completed, the entire building extended almost to the two side property lines, with only a minimal 1.5-foot side yard setback on each side of the subject structure. Since 1971, various iterations have been made to the Kettering zoning code, which all were adopted by Kettering City Council. In these zoning code amendments, both the minimum rear yard setback and the minimum side yard setback requirements were increased for this property. This means that the structure on the subject lot, though compliant in 1971, is no longer compliant to the modern zoning standards of the city of Kettering. The existing building can be maintained as it was constructed as a non-conforming structure. The property owner can also repair or resurface the roof on the structure as long as it does not extend above the parapet. However, any significant building modification, which includes the addition of gable roof with end walls, would require the application of the current zoning code standards, most notably architectural requirements. The existing concrete block structure would lose the right to continue to its architectural design based on the addition of the proposed sloped roof. Section 1155.05B, nonconforming structures, states that a structure loses the right to continue when certain conditions are present. Specifically, if the proposed modification is greater than 10% in wall area or comprises greater than 10% of the length of the facade, then compliance is mandatory. This architectural evaluation is principally why it was imperative to have the building elevations submitted with the original plan submittal. The property owner stated that his building, which is not conforming to the current zoning code, did not need to meet the standards of the current zoning code. Therefore, he did not produce these elevations prior to the hearing on the previous appeal.
Okay, but now you've got the supplemental submissions. What's the impact of the supplemental submissions?
After the board's decision to uphold the denial of the building permit, Mr. Jenkins provided all 4 building elevations, as the zoning code requires, which allowed staff to complete our evaluation.
Okay, if you would take a look at Exhibit 4 and tell the council what Exhibit 4 is.
Exhibit 4, and it's multiple pages, is a site plan and building elevations that were submitted eventually by the applicant to fulfill their requirements for the building permit.
And what's the significance of these elevations?
The proposed roof addition includes walls on the 2 gable ends of the building. All 4 building elevations were evaluated with both the area and length of each wall measured. This means that there are 8 calculations to make to determine whether the requirements of section 1155.05B apply to this request.
Okay. What's the significance of these thresholds in 1155.0B?
While only one of the thresholds cited in this section, 1155.05B, would need to be exceeded to trigger architectural compliance, 6 of the possible 8 thresholds have been exceeded. This means that the architectural compliance required by the Kettering zoning code must be applied to the proposed roof addition.
Okay. Now, just give us a brief overview of the rear and side yard setbacks and why that's an issue in this case.
Well, the rear and side yard setbacks, there's be a violation. The proposed plan fails to show compliance with the 40-foot rear yard setback and the 10-foot side yard setback required by CO 1141.06.4. The existing building encroaches 30 feet into the required rear yard setback. The existing building encroaches 9 feet on both sides in the required side yard setback. In Bza case 1892, which is the first case on this property in 1970, there was a rear yard setback variance granted, allowing the existing building to be placed in its current location. This variance was granted subject to several conditions, one of which was that the building would be constructed according to the plans approved by the Bza, which showed a flat roof. The proposed plans currently, the proposed plans materially deviate from the BZA approved design by proposing a peaked roof now, altering the design and adding additional height to the structure. The material deviation violates the variance conditions and will terminate the rear yard variance and require compliance with CO 1141.06.4.
Okay, so what's the significance of all this as it relates to the application and this particular case?
There are a number of violations that occur because of the termination of the right to continue the location of the building. First of all, the plans fail to show exterior finished materials for all sides of the building that comply with CO 1149.03.7C, Table 49.2, permitted exterior finished materials by Development Pattern District. Concrete block is not permitted.
What's the significance of that? This building got concrete on it?
It is a concrete block building, yes.
So what?
It does not meet the architectural requirements of the pattern district within which it is located.
What about point number 2?
Point number 2, the plans fail to show roofing materials that comply with CO 1149.03.7.C, Table 49.2, permitted exterior finished materials by Development Pattern District. Metal standing seam panels are not permitted in this pattern district.
So what?
So it would be non-compliant to the code requirements.
What about 3?
The plans fail to show a roof overhang complying with CO 1149.03.16, requiring a minimum 24-inch roof overhang for this structure, also making it non-compliant to the code.
What about 4?
The plans fail to show fascia board complying with CO 1149.03.16, minimum 8-inch fascia boards are required.
What about point 5?
The plans fail to show caps and bases on the east side elevation complying with CO 1149.03.3.
What about point 6?
Point 6 says the plans fail to show columns with full dimensions for all columns on both the east side elevation, which is the principal facade, and the north side elevation to comply with CO 1149.03.4.
What in the world is a principal facade?
Principal facade is the facade on the front face of the building facing the street.
What's the secondary facade?
Is any other facade.
Okay. What about point 7?
Point 7, the plans fail to show a defined customer entrance for the east side elevation, the principal facade, to allow compliance with CO 1149.03.5.
And the last one, 8.
And the last one, the plans fail to show the east side elevation, which is the principal facade, with at least 4 of the required design features complying to allow it to comply with CO 1149.03.11.
Okay. Now, what's the impact of your findings 1 through 8?
Because the existing building does not comply with the current zoning requirements, the building is non-conforming. Under CO 1155.05B, if a proposed building modification involves greater than 10% in wall area or comprises greater than 10% of the length of the principal facade or 25% of the secondary facade, then the building will lose its non-conforming status and full compliance with the current zoning code architectural requirements is mandatory. The proposed plan exceeds those thresholds.
Okay. Now, you made some calculations here on the south side. Can you summarize these for the council without reading each of them?
Yeah, so there's basically 2 calculations. They don't exceed one. One threshold is not exceeded, but the other threshold is exceeded, and that's the existing length of the facade. The entire facade is modified by the addition of the roof.
So it looks like each of these has a calculation for the wall area and a calculation for the length?
That is correct.
Okay. And if you've got 1 and 1 on the south, what about
East?
yes?
The east is the principal facade, and both of these thresholds are exceeded, both in length and in area.
And what about the north?
In north, both the length and area are exceeded.
And what about the west?
West, only one of the two thresholds is exceeded, and that is the length of facade.
Okay, and if we go back to Exhibit 4, which we've got up there, am I correct that this is the drawings that you used and that staff used for the calculations for each of these determinations?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, what's the significance of exceeding a threshold?
While only one of these thresholds needs to be exceeded to trigger the loss of nonconforming status, as we've demonstrated with the current testimony, the proposed plans exceed 6 of the 8 thresholds, triggering the loss of nonconforming status. During the BZA public hearing, testimony was provided by the applicant indicating that the roof is not considered part of the facade. Staff's evaluation is contrary to this opinion, and our resulting calculations were one of many reasons that the structure permit could not be approved as submitted. The zoning administrator, me, determined that the facade includes the roof.
Why'd you do that?
Well, it's because the definition of facade that is incorporated in the zoning code states, a facade is the external portion of a building or structure as viewed from a specific vantage point. Examples of specific vantage points include, but are not limited to, the north, the south, east, west, or front and side and rear facade.
Okay, now let's just pretend that this little desk that you're sitting at right here is the top of this building. And is the gable end is a pointed roof that goes up like this?
That's correct.
And this vantage point business from the north, south, east, or west, is that when you're standing out, you look at the building?
That would be the east elevation, so it's looking from the east.
Okay. And does that, explain to the board how that applies or doesn't apply to this situation?
Well, there's two things of consideration. The structure has a wall here to support the roof structure, so there's additional wall area. So the area of the building increased, and so we had to calculate that, and it exceeded the threshold. The length was also evaluated, and that's the other threshold that was exceeded on the eastern or front facade.
Very well. And on October, we've mentioned that Mr. Jenkins filed an appeal to BZA and is now appealed to City Council. Did he at any time ever file a waiver of time requirements to have his appeal heard within 45 days?
Yes, he did.
And I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to Exhibit 5 in the hard official copy of the exhibits, and ask if you can identify Exhibit 5 for the record.
I can. It is his request to ask for a waiver of time requirements.
Okay. Now, in addition, I'd like you to take a look at Exhibit 6 and identify that document for the record.
It is a summary of the documents that are included in the William Jenkins file.
Okay, with the Department of, and what department?
In the Planning and Development Department.
Okay, so that title I put on there is really misnomer. It shouldn't be Planning Commission, it should be Planning and Development Department.
That's correct.
I'll stand corrected. And is the copy of the file that's in front of you in the document a fair, accurate, and correct copy of your file as you know it to be?
I'm going to be a little flippant. I don't know if there's a page missing, but it looks to be complete.
Okay, and then if we go to Exhibit 7.
In this?
Yes.
Yes.
What's Exhibit 7?
Exhibit 7 is October 20.
Sorry, these are within, we've already, Exhibit
Correct.
7 there is within your file, right?
That's correct.
Let's go to the next file, which is Exhibit 7, which I believe is the clerk's file. Is that right? Maybe you can tell me If we go to Exhibit 7 here,
I don't
what
see
you
it.
have.
Oh, there, I apologize.
So what's Exhibit 7?
Exhibit 7 is the file that was provided to the clerk of court. Actually, clerk of council. That's a misnomer too, probably.
Okay, what should that be?
Clerk of council,
Okay, why don't you write on there what that should be?
okay?
And while you're doing that, am I correct that, to the best of your knowledge, that the documents contained therein are all of the documents you understand to be from the clerk of council with respect to this matter?
I believe they are.
And am I correct now that, to your knowledge, all of the documents that exist for the City of Kettering from the files of planning and development and the clerk's office and your report are contained in the exhibits that have been submitted?
Yes.
Now, I will represent to the City Council that each of you have a little CD that we've provided, I hope, to everyone. If we need to make more copies, we can, but this is a copy of all of the exhibits that, in the event in your deliberations, you would care to look at. And also, I'm going to, Mr. Hunt, this is Exhibit 8. What does Exhibit 8 purport to be?
Exhibit 8 is the Bza videotape on a DVD, I'm going to say, not videotape, DVD record of Bza case on 10/26/20, which is what the applicant is appealing the decision for.
So, at the appropriate time, we will offer these. Who should be the custodian of the exhibits? So, Mr. Hunt, last question. What's the bottom line of this case?
On October 30th, 2020, Mr. Jenkins filed an appeal of October 26, 2020 decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals. He made that appeal to City Council. On December 8, 2020, Mr. Jenkins filed a waiver of time requirements to have his appeal heard within 45 days of the filing of the written appeal. And so that's why we're here this evening, many months later. City Council, in our opinion, should affirm the Board of Zoning Appeals decision of October 26, 2020, because the applicant has failed to provide any credible information that the zoning administrator made an error in a written order, requirement, decision, interpretation, judgment, or determination, and that the appellant has not provided any credible substantive evidence that the zoning administrator's decision to deny zoning approval of the requested structure permit is or was invalid.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, based upon all of these facts, in light of the fact that the zoning administrator and the Board of Zoning Appeals properly denied the permit, we would request that you would affirm those decisions this evening. That will conclude our presentation for this moment, and we'll reserve right for cross and closing comments as they may be indicated. Thank you.
Oh.
You may have questions.
Okay.
Mr. Jenkins, do you have any questions for the witness? No. Okay, no questions. City Council have any questions of the witness? Okay, Mr. Waite, you affirm that you are finished with your presentation then?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I affirm that I have no further witnesses and that I'm finished with my case in chief.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Jenkins, did you take the oath?
Yes.
If you would proceed to the podium with your presentation. If you have any witnesses, if you'd have them sit in the witness box, please.
Okay, yes. I got Lawrence Cole. He's the regional vice president for Walters Building, and he'd like to make some comments this evening. I'm Bill Jenkins. I'm the owner of the property on Wilmington Pike, and my brother and I ran the Air City Janitor Supply for 45 years and retired, and my dad started the business and built the buildings. He ran the business for 15 years and retired and turned it over to my brother and I, and we built the business and ran it, a successful business here in Kettering for 45 to 50 years. I'm not going to take as long as the last presentation, but I got this building that has got a flat roof that has been nothing but problems for the whole time. It's been repaired many times. I got flat roofs are impossible to fix, and this one I got a contractor that, and you have the statement where he said that it'd be a lot better to put on a pitched roof and get rid of that flat roof. They're nothing but problem. And what I want to do is I want to update this building and make it look nicer, update it, and give it a nice appearance. And I've talked to all my neighbors. I've got statements and signatures from my neighbors. And you should have that information. And they all think it's a good idea and a great idea. Any improvement to the property would be a good thing. Now, no matter what I do to that property, it will never meet current code. It's a big building, it's a good building, and it needs a roof. And I want to put on a nice looking metal roof that will last for years and be maintenance free. And I also, I don't know if they presented those, I guess do you have all the information that I submitted through of everything? So you have the list of all the people that own property up and down the street and signed a petition saying that they would like for me to put a roof on. And then I have a statement from a contractor, a roofing contractor, that said that the flat roof doesn't have any pitch and it won't drain. So I need to put on a roof that'll have some pitch and it will drain properly. And how this all got started is when my brother and I retired, we put the building up for sale. And we had the building sold, and we had a deposit. It was through a realtor, and had a deposit and had a closing date. And so the new buyers approached the city to, find out what they needed to do to get an occupancy permit. Now, I really wasn't aware of any of this. I had a realtor that sold the building, and We were just waiting for the closing. And they asked for a couple extensions, and we granted those. And then they finally came and backed out of the deal. And I really didn't know why, but it really didn't matter to me one way or the other. So I decided that and they were going to buy it and fix the roof. They were going to buy the building as is and put a roof on it. It needs a roof. It leaks real bad. And my building is deteriorating, and it's causing a lot of issues, and I need to get this roof fixed. So I took on the project of checking into how to repair this roof, and I found a good building contractor that was willing to put the roof on, and so he drew up all the plans. I really didn't want to get involved or have to do anything, but he ran into a lot of issues with the city, so we set up a meeting with Ron and Terry and David and Lawrence and I to find out what we had to do to get this building permit. And we submitted plans, and I admit that the plans weren't complete or completely done, but in the meeting, Ron said that he made a statement. You're not going to get a building permit, and if you try, you're going to be wasting your money, wasting your time and money, and I would like to see the building tore down. And I couldn't believe it. But I proceeded forward anyhow. So with me not having a complete application is not completely true. The city of Kettering has a site plan from the building in 1965 and 1972. We had to go to the Bza. Of course, I was only that big. In 65 to get a permit to open a janitor supply company. That's what that Bza hearing was for. The next Bza hearing was for the variance for the 10-foot. My dad wanted the 6-foot, but they wouldn't allow that, so they gave him 10-foot, and it was for the drainage pipe. My dad had to move the drainage pipe so that the building wouldn't sit on top of it, and that's all that Bza hearing was about. The hearing was not we had to build a flat roof. It's nowhere in there, and that's in the Bza meeting. I got it here. 1971. So that's what that hearing was about. Now, the city had, so what we did, Lawrence and I, we submitted a new drawing. It's approved by an architect and a engineer from the state of Ohio. And let's see here. We submitted that, and then they said we had to pay a $500 fee to review it. So we did. We paid $500 to review it, and Then about these variances, I specifically, after the last BZA meeting, I specifically asked the city, what variances am I not compliant with, and what variances do I need or should I ask for to get this roof? And I'm not getting any cooperation from planning on that, so that's the reason why I have to appeal everything. I've asked, and we're willing to work with the city and do whatever it takes to make a nice improvement. So now, as far as the 412, we're going to do a 412 pitch. Now, the new code pretty much specifies that they'd like to have a 412 pitch. And they're saying that the facade is too much square foot for the building. Well, that's, if you look at the building and the square foot of the walls and the pitch of the roof with the facade, I don't think there's an issue. And they're measuring the facade where the gutter's going to hang. We're going to put a gutter all the way around it and put it in existing drainage. And my building is non-conforming, and I don't think that we're doing anything that major to make it conforming and come up to the new city code, because no matter what I do, that building will never meet the new code. And I don't think it's fair for, and that's the reason why my buyers backed out of the deal. I lost the sale, so now I have to remodel the building. And it's not something I really wanted to do, but it's something that I have to do. And Lawrence, do you have anything to add?
So it'll get a better.
I just would like to add a couple things. Try to help Bill's case along here.
Could you give us your name, please?
My name's Lawrence Cole. I'm the contractor that Bill reached out to help solve this. I'm a very simple person, and I don't see things in lawyerese, and I have to follow code on a regular basis as part of my job. I understand why code's there. Code is there because somebody typically messed something up before that required somebody to write something to make sure it doesn't happen again. I get all that. But a lot of times, code is there, and I would hate to be in Ron's position of trying to decipher code and trying to enforce it as a daily job, because it's all interpretation. Simply, what Bill has, he has an old building that's a non-conforming building, that if something's not done to it, the roof is going to fall in on it. Plain and simple. Could it be replaced with another roof like he's got? Absolutely, without a doubt. It'd probably be cheaper, but in 5 years, he's probably going to be doing it again. And in 5 years after that, he's probably going to be doing it again. What we came up with was a pitched roof that sheds water, that doesn't hold water, that gets everything away, the water goes into the drainage system. It can be very attractive. With the wrong contractor, it can be an eyesore. Again, I get why there's zoning laws, but that's why you ask to see what it's going to look like. Simple enough. My whole process in this, I've been with Bill all the way on it. as I said before, I'm a very simple person. I see things from a very simple point of view. My view of government bodies, you guys are employed by the taxpayers. You do a tremendous job. It's your job to help the taxpayers, to help the people that are employing you. It seems in this case, and I'm not trying to point any fingers, so please don't think I am. It seems in this case, we've been more caught up in the words of the zoning board than we are of how to help Bill get his buildings where the roof's not going to fall in. That's just what it seems like. Whether it's that way, I don't know. In my world, appearances are 90% of the truth. A lot of times it's not true. Things aren't as they appear, but that's what it appears to me right now. Do I need this job of putting Bill's roof on? No. I'll survive just fine whether I do it, whether I don't do it. Does Bill need something done? Absolutely, Bill needs something done, or he's going to watch it crash and burn, and you guys are going to have an eyesore on your hands on Wildcat Pike. Can some of the zoning issues be solved? No, the building's not going to get any smaller. It's not going to get any shorter. It's not going to get any less brown unless you paint it. The windows aren't going to change size unless we need to put an attractive option on this that's going to last. Again, I'm from a very simple world. With that, I mean, you guys have decisions to make every day. I have decisions to make every day. But I think, I mean, you can look at the law side of it, by the book, what the black word says. Or you can look at it, you got a taxpayer in the community that's got a problem, and how are we going to solve it? If there's a variance we can easily go by without half destroying the building, I'd say Bill be all in on that. But we haven't presented that yet. So that's why Bill's here. That's really all I got.
Yeah, then we went and got a site plan. So we did a site plan, which was already on record with the city of Kettering from the previous building in 72 and 70 or 65. And then we also did a survey. We got the lot surveyed, which was really unnecessary, an added expense. That was on file. I asked to search the file, and they have. I got the transcript of the 65 BZA meeting. I got the transcript of the 72 BZA meeting, and then I got tapes or DVDs of the other two hearings. And if you listen to those tapes, they're pretty revealing. And if you read the BZA hearing in 72, you'll see that it was for a drainage pipe. It's not that the building had to have a flat roof. That's just the way they built buildings back in the 60s and 70s. Big mistake, because that's all we've done is repair, fix. It doesn't drain properly. It doesn't have enough slope. We've had lightweight concrete poured up there to slope it to the scutters and re-roofed. And it's just freezing and thawing is just causes issues. I want to put a nice looking metal roof with a nice looking pitch, and you saw pictures of it because we provided detailed drawings. And basically that's all I have. And I hope that you can see that it would be a nice addition to the city of Kettering, I can get the permission to build the building, and if I need to do anything more to get this done, all we have to do, just make us aware of it and have planning and zoning work with us. And we need to do something as soon as we can, and that's all I have, so thank you.
Before we go, Mr. Waite, do you have any questions of either of these witnesses?
Just Mr. Cole.
Okay.
Take it on me.
I'll try not to pick on you. I appreciate your position. It's good to have a good friend. Indeed. I'm going to ask you.
Like everybody, I mean,
That's
before this, I didn't know Bill.
it's a big deal. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I hope you can answer them with a yes or no. They're designed to be kind of easy based on what you've already told the council. Okay? Do you agree that Mr. Jenkins has not filed a variance?
Yes.
Do you agree that Mr. Jenkins has had the opportunity to file a variance but has chosen not to file a variance?
He's had the opportunity, if he was asked, I think he's asked what he needed to file, but yeah, he's had the opportunity.
Do you agree that the proposed plan contains two gable ends?
I believe so.
And do you agree with me that a gable roof is materially different than a flat roof?
Yeah,
Do you agree with me that a gable roof has different elevations than a flat roof?
absolutely.
Do you agree with me that a gable roof adds height to a structure?
Absolutely. Yes.
Do you agree with me that a gable roof is an external portion of a building structure that can be viewed from a specific vantage point outside of the structure, like a north side or an east or west vantage point?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah. Do you agree with me that plans attached to building permits must conform to the zoning code?
Yes,
Do you agree with me that the zoning administrator is acting properly when he rejects plans that are not in accordance with the zoning code?
in his view, he is acting properly, yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, do you have any exhibits you'd like to present to the law director, other than the ones you've presented already?
Yes. And I'd like to ask Ron one more question.
Okay.
Me or Ron?
You gotta go to podium, please.
Did you want me or Ron?
I'm going to ask you, when putting this roof on, it's not making the building any bigger or adding any more square foot to the building?
It's not making the footprint of the building any bigger, it's making the building taller.
Okay, but it's not making the footprint any bigger?
No.
No more square foot, not any addition whatsoever?
Non-usable space.
Right, okay, thank you.
Did you have some exhibits you wanted to present?
I think they presented anything that I filed with the clerk of council. Do you have that information?
Yes, that's in our packet.
You do?
You might want to,
That's all I have.
Ted, should he submit that in case there is?
Well, it's already.
Well, we don't know what we don't have. So, I mean, I can't.
Okay. I think you already have it, because I filed all this with clerk of council.
Well, then it would be part of your written appeal.
Yes.
So we have all that.
I would like to have that whole file.
Council has everything that you submitted with your written appeal.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay.
And the BZA hearing of 06 and the tape, you have both tapes. The BZA hearing 06
Those are on file.
and the 016.
That's on file.
And those are available for city council to review.
They can review that.
And I asked that they review them in my appeal on some certain markings on the tape, time frames that I would like looked at.
If it's in your submissions.
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? It's now time for public comments. Please do not ask questions of city council or expect city council to comment. Public comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Each person may speak only once. Please do not repeat material that has already been covered. Persons offering comment may be subject to cross-examination. Before you begin, state your name and address and state whether you have taken the oath. Is there anyone wishing to make comments this evening? Being none, public hearing is closed. No further evidence may be submitted to City Council for this appeal. City Council will make a decision on the appeal at a future meeting. Next, we'll move on to public comment on legislation. Anyone wishing?
Could I just ask the record to reflect that the exhibits that were tendered from all parties have been admitted to the record?
We've closed it. I have no idea.
The record can reflect that.
Public comment on legislation. Anyone wishing to speak before council with comments or new information about legislation on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Speakers must state their name and address. Comments should be addressed to council. If you have comments that are not about legislation on tonight's agenda, there will be an opportunity for those to be heard later in the meeting. Is there any public comment on legislation on tonight's agenda? Okay, we'll move on to ordinances in second reading. Vice Mayor Klepass.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have an ordinance this evening in second reading to levy special assessments for the construction and repair of curbs, sidewalks, drive approaches, and related appurtenances for the Ackerman Boulevard East Stroop to East Dorothy Lane project, City Project Number 02-138G, is requested by the Engineering Department. I move for approval tonight.
Second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance in second reading will levy assessments for the Ackerman Boulevard project from East Stroop Road to East Dorothy Lane that was completed last year. We have completed all the necessary notice requirements, and we ask for approval this evening. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have an ordinance to levy special assessments for the construction and repair of curbs, sidewalks, drive approaches, and related repairs for the 2020 curb, sidewalk, and driveway approach program, City Project Number 05-120. It is requested by the Engineering Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. Similar to the previous ordinance, this one is for the 2020 curb, sidewalk, and drive approach repair program. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have an ordinance in second reading to levy special assessments for the construction and repair of curbs, sidewalks, drive approaches, and related appurtenances for Berna Lane and Allgood Drive, City Project Number 05-120A, and I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. Similar to the previous two ordinances, this one is for a specific section of the 2020 curb, sidewalk, and drive approach repair program on Berna Lane and Allgood Drive. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing an additional expenditure of funds for the 2021 concrete repair
Oh,
program.
wait a second. Joe, we need to do the ordinance, the fifth ordinance, please.
I skipped an ordinance? Let me find it here. I'm sorry. I have an ordinance in the second reading releasing an easement for channel and sewer purposes at 3024 Hempstead Station Drive. This is requested by the Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance is in relation to a development that is currently under construction at 3024 Hempstead Station Drive, which is immediately south of the post office at Stroop at Hempstead. The easement on the property is no longer needed, and due to the development, we ask that it be released and abandoned. Be happy to answer questions.
Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes. Moving on to resolutions, Mr. Duke.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing an additional expenditure of funds for the 2021 concrete repair program, City Project number 04-421, requested by the Engineering Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will allow the city to expend additional funds on the 2021 concrete repair program, which is, we are under contract with R.A. Miller Construction Company for this project. We had very favorable bid results for all of our roadway capital improvement programs for 2021. Therefore, excess funds are available to spend on this year's concrete repair program. Additional work will be completed on Windermere Drive, Foxdale Drive, Partridge Run Circle, Quail Bend Circle, Holly Bend Circle, Stoneview Court, Bentwood Circle, and other miscellaneous work. All the streets I mentioned are concrete streets that do not have an asphalt overlay. Therefore, they are repaired under this program. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Bergstresser? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter and implement a collective bargaining agreement with the Kettering Police Supervisors Association, which is consistent with a tentative agreement reached by the bargaining teams, requested by the Human Resources Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Schredeman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will allow us to move forward with a tentative agreement that has been reached with the Police Command Union or collective bargaining unit. We reached this agreement a couple weeks ago, and the bargaining unit has approved the tentative agreement. The tentative agreement, from a materiality standpoint, calls for a 3-year agreement that is essentially the calendar years of 21, 22, and 23. It calls for a wage increase for the bargaining unit of 2.5% in the first year, 2.5% in the second year, and 2.25% in the third year. There are a few other non-wage related items in the tentative agreement that allows, for example, leave time to be taken in smaller increments. But the other items in the tentative agreement are not material in regards to economics. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Schredeman? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a grant from the U.S. Small Business Administration. It is requested by the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department, and I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Schredeman.
Thank you, Your Honor. There is the availability through the SBA for the shuttered venue grant. And this grant would be available to us as the operator of the Phrase Pavilion. The grant applications are started to be accepted last week, although there has been technical glitches at the SBA, so the portal is not yet open for submission of grants. Based upon the grant guidelines, the Phrase Pavilion would be eligible for a grant of 45% of revenues based upon our 2019 or pre-pandemic receipts, which would make us eligible for approximately a $2 million grant. We're seeking your approval to submit the grant, and we'll do so as soon as the portal is open. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to use competitive bargaining and negotiated quotes to contract for resurfacing of surfaces at the Adventure Reef Water Park. Estimated cost is $34,680. The amount budgeted is $50,000. It's being requested by our Public Service Department, and I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Sweeterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our regular schedule for the repainting of Adventure Reef Water Park is every 3 years. And so we are scheduled for concrete repair and repainting this year. The estimated cost, as mentioned, is a little under $35,000, and we do have $50,000 budgeted for this project in the 2021 capital improvement budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Kettering, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. Estimated cost is $77,848. This is requested by the Finance, and I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Sweeterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Kettering was fortunate enough to receive some grant dollars in a collaborative effort with the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, which covered essentially 37 jurisdictions who applied for electric vehicle charging station grant funds. The city was notified that we received funding for 2 locations, and the locations will be Delco Park and the Kettering Recreation Complex. The total cost is $77,848. The grant funds would be $45,000, and the city match would be $32,848. It is scheduled to be a 2021 project, thus the appropriation this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Mr. Kleepass?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lauder?
Yes.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes. Moving on to ordinances and first reading, we have none this evening. Certifications and petitions, Ms. Kozinski.
Your Honor, we do not have any certifications or petitions this evening.
City Manager Report and Community Update, Mr. Sweeterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a few slides for you today for the community update. The first is to announce that, excuse me, the mulch site is up and running starting yesterday. So residents can pick up the mulch at the Tannenberg Kennel site off of Stroop Road. Our Public Service Department makes delivery of fresh mulch on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So stop back often if you happen to get there while there's no mulch. The city will be making a run through the city for what we call our spring leaf pickup program. And so this is to catch those leaves or pick up those leaves at the curbside that were not picked up last fall. It's not a brush pickup, so we remind our residents that we do have a yard debris center on Hempstead Station Road that you can take your yard debris to that is not leaves. And as mentioned earlier today, Tree Fest activities will take place Saturday, April 17th from 9 to noon at Pondview Park. We encourage residents to stop by and help us clean up the park and plant some trees. On Saturday, April 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we'll be taking part in the DEA Take Back program. So our prescription drop-off facility will be open, and if the weather's nice, we'll have an event. If the weather's not nice, the drop box will still be open and available to our residents on Saturday, the 24th. City income tax filing has changed. As I think we mentioned at our last meeting, the deadline has been extended to May 17th, 2021 to match the state deadline. If residents need assistance in preparing their tax returns, our tax division in the north building here at 3600 Schroyer Road is available during the day to have your returns prepared. We also have forms on our website that you can download from the website and prepare your own returns. And if you have any questions, you can certainly call our tax division or again refer to our website for forms and instructions. Finally, Your Honor, I just want to remind everyone in the community that the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts is undergoing a seasonal hiring process right now for our programs at the Recreation Complex, as well as our Parks Division and our Fraser Pavilion operations. So we encourage anyone who's looking for some summer employment to join our team and fill out an application. They can go to Play Kettering to do that online, or they can certainly contact our Human Resource Department or our Parks and Recreation Department for assistance. We need a lot of employees this summer, and we look forward to receiving applications and having a summer this year. Your Honor, that's all I have for you for the community update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sweeterman? Thank you. Next, we'll move on to public comment. Anyone wish to speak before council, please come on down to the podium. We do have a 5-minute limit. We ask you to give us your name and address. Does anyone like to speak before council? If not, we'll move on to City Council report. Vice Mayor Kleepass.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to mention that just recently I read that consumers are starting to go back and shop at their local businesses. And that's good news for us because we say it every 2 weeks to support our local Kettering businesses, and it looks like we're doing that. We need to continue to do that. The last thing I want to mention, and maybe some others will too, is Saturday, several of us attended the celebration of life of Jack Ackerman at Christ United Methodist Church. Jack passed away at the age of 95. I knew Jack. I originally met Jack about 15 to 20 years ago when we were on the board of community relations here together. And I learned a lot about Jack from that time and through our days at the Dorwood Optimist. But Saturday, the tribute to Jack was wonderful to hear his life story almost, all the way from being a World War II veteran to having a full week's schedule the week he died. And he even tried to schedule something for the following Monday, I think with his physical therapist or whatever it was he was going to. So I wanted to mention Jack tonight, and I don't know if others will or not, but my sympathy goes out to his wife Arlene, who's a great, well-remembered Kettering school teacher, and to his children, Ron and Sandy. That's all I have, Mayor.
Ms. Fisher.
I have a couple things. I actually got my taxes done today. I can tell you from start to finish, 5 minutes and I was out. So what a great service to all of our residents, and I would encourage you to get your taxes done because it's quick and you're out. Mr. Lauder and I both were honored to attend the opening of the Eco Plumbers company that has relocated to Kettering. Awesome. Very beautiful building, high energy culture. And they explained to us that they do everything for residential, from real small plumbing jobs to very large plumbing jobs. So glad to have them part of our community. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to give a shout out to neighbor Chris in the neighborhood. I witnessed him being a good neighbor. And that is one thing in Kettering that I think is one of our great strengths, is neighbors checking on neighbors. And so shout out to him and to our fire department for their quick reaction when there was an emergency. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Lauder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would second the comments that Mrs. Fisher made in regards to Eco Plumbing. That was an impressive operation, and as she stated, and as you always state, Your Honor, they could have chosen anywhere to locate in the Dayton area. They want to aggressively go after this market, and they chose Kettering, and we both let them know that we are very appreciative of that. Since we last met, we saw Ron Hunt here, but Ron, we know, is retired from the city of Kettering after many years of service. And in the police department, we're losing Larry Warren. I had the pleasure, the privilege of working with Larry back when I was working on the school board education side of the street, and he was an excellent school resource officer and was highly respected. And Ms. Kleepaz, I believe that the Ackermans, I don't think I heard you say that, they were also selected as grand marshals for a holiday at home a couple years ago. So that was it's a very talented family, and Jack's passing is a real loss for the community.
Mr. Wanamaker.
I have nothing to add tonight, Your Honor.
Duke.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have several things. Number one, most of us, a lot of us were at the Seventh-day Adventist church down at Kettering Medical Center, across the street from Kettering Medical Center, where they have put on just a magnificent addition to their building, and it is in particular designed for kids. That's the focus. And the things they have there, any child, any kid would want, heck, any adult would want to go there. It is very well set up. If you get a chance to look at that, I would encourage that. I do want to make an announcement. Our community, Kettering, is part of the First Tier Suburbs group. It is 12 communities around the city of Dayton. And several weeks ago, a couple of us applied for a grant, a $10,000 grant, which is awarded to a first-tier suburb group that comes up with a project, and we are awarded $10,000 of consulting services from a consulting firm, TIP Strategies, out of Austin, Texas. The project this year is attracting and retaining workforce employment for communities, and we all know how difficult it is for us to attract and retain people here in our community, to stay in our community, to be attracted in the first place. We will be spending, in these 12 communities, we'll be spending about the next 4 months gathering data about our advantages, our disadvantages, good things we see, areas we feel we need to improve. All of this will be analyzed by TIP Strategies, and on September the 15th, we will be having a one-day conference where we will invite representatives from all of our 12 communities to learn what we've analyzed, learn the good news, the bad news, where we need to improve, where we need to grow. This is an honor. There were 18 communities around the United States that applied. We won this as our first-tier group, and it's a big plug for us. It has been advertised. It was on Channel 7 last night, and it's Dayton Business Journal. It's national. Has picked it up, the Ohio Municipal League and so forth. So it's a great honor, and I'm looking forward to working with others on that program. I do want to remind everyone that there is a Kettering Leadership Academy next year. The applications are online. There's not going to be a paper application. So if you're interested, if you would, go to the Kettering website. It is online. It's ready to go. And the other two things I wanted to share, yes, I want to raise up Jack Ackerman. We moved here in 1974, and one of the first persons I met, we met, my wife and I, at Christ United Methodist Church, was Jack Ackerman and Arlene. And they are truly the consummate volunteers. I mean, Jack's track record in Dorwood, he has had every you can achieve rank as you move up in Norwood Optimist. Jack had the highest possible rank that any person could have as an optimist from the International Optimist group. He was he's won so many awards for his work in optimism. One thing maybe you didn't know, others mention other things he's done, but through the Kettering Leadership Academy, one of the projects they started was something called Clean Care. And Clean Care, we have the backpack program that was started. Jackie's group started the backpack program, but then another group started something called Clean Care. And Jack got so excited about this that how can we help folks in our schools that need some assistance with personal products? And he and Arlene got behind that. He became a board member for that particular group and worked very hard to make that happen. Our prayers go obviously to Arlene and children, Katie and Ron. They're a great family. They're just a great family. And one other passing that we had this week, and most of us know who I'm going to talk about, is Bob Ellis. Bob Ellis, the Wiz, Bob the Wiz Ellis, for those of you that are familiar with Alter soccer. Bob Ellis was is among the winningest coach of high school soccer in Ohio. He didn't know anything about soccer. And in 1977, I think it was Rob Jr. or Cam, one of his kids, I'm not sure which one, Dad, I want to play soccer. And they had a program at the Y. And so he went over and said, okay, yeah, we'll go teach you how to play soccer. So he went over and he learned a little bit about soccer. And obviously, they roped him into volunteering to help. And he got really hooked on soccer. His wife, Katie, became an amazing soccer coach for the women in this community. I know my daughters played against her teams for years. And over Bob's career as a soccer coach, 400 career victories at Alter High School, which puts him very near the top. And as you know, they've won a couple of championships along the way. One thing you might not know about Bob, and we mentioned it this evening, Jackie mentioned her taxes, and Mark said if you need help with your taxes, come to Kettering. Bob Ellis was a CPA, and back in 2005, at least that's as far back as we can find the records. I talked with Mary Lou Randolph today, our volunteer coordinator, and we went back to 2005 where Bob started volunteering to help people with their taxes. And there's a program that AARP has, and Bob met with other folks in the community, trained them through AARP, but he alone, since 2005, has contributed over 11,000 hours to our residents preparing taxes for our citizens at the Latham Center. Do the math. That is a whole lot of time spent from January until past tax season. And I was reminded today from Mary Lou that Bob literally lived in that tax area doing that almost full time during the tax season. He had his own personal competitive spirit, and every year he would always set a goal to do more this year than we did last year. And Mary Lou tells me that he was successful every year in doing that. And just last week, one of his kids shared that he was really excited about continuing the work they're doing with our residents on taxes this year because he had to beat the record from last year. That's the kind of guy he was. So two really amazing citizens, two community servants, Jack Ackerman and Bob Ellis, passed this week. So keep them all in your prayers. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Just a couple things. We've highlighted some of them on the second. I, along with, I think, everybody on council, had the opportunity to participate at the Seventh-day Adventist Church ribbon cutting of their new facility down there, and I'm going to tell you what, it is state of the art, and I think Bruce hit the nail on the head. If you're a kid, you got to love that place down there, because there's a room for every age group, and the things these youth and kids can do during the week or at church or whenever they have events there is phenomenal. Thanks for them for inviting us to that. I enjoyed participating in the ribbon cutting, and few words to speak. Also touched on Ron Hunt on the 31st. We had a going away party for Ron on a plaza out here at the city. So just a couple other things. Congratulations to Andy Hiddle, who served the city of Kettering for 46 years in providing IT assistance for all of us here at the building. We wish him the best in retirement. He will be retiring this Friday. So again, just like to thank our dispatchers for being that calm voice that we hear when we need public safety service. Their work in protecting us, our police officers, firefighters, is awe-inspiring. We're grateful for your service not only during this nationally recognized week, but for every single day of the year. So thank you for that. This week we're also celebrating National Animal Care and Control employees. Our community services specialists provide animal control and education for our residents. Shelley, thank you for your knowledge, your patience, and your compassion. A lot of us need to have your help, and you're doing an excellent job. Next week, we will celebrate National Volunteer Week, as you heard from some of the proclamations that were issued this evening, and we thank all of our residents for their time and efforts in volunteering and making this community the great community that it is. So we understand that there's no greater gift than your time, so we thank you for giving us your time. So with that, if there's no other business to come before us this evening, our next regularly scheduled meeting is April the 27th, and with that, we stand adjourned.